Well, when I was in school, I went to school for religious studies in my graduate school degree, and one of my professors said that a minor translation detail in the Genesis account, which has been used quite readily by corporate exploration, especially in the mineral and oil extraction, but it was subdue the earth. Men, take dominion, subdue. And my Hebrew professor said that actually it's be stewards of the earth, yes. Which is quite a different, if someone was trying to grow grapes for a vineyard to harvest a great, wine crop or a grape crop, if they subdued it, that would be mowed down with a lawnmower. But if they were stewards of it, they would fertilize it, keep it, cultivate it. And it's a very different
with organic
mindset.
Fertilizer and integrated pest management.
Yeah, put some wild animals out there. But seriously though, that frame or that meme has really been picked up, and I've heard on talk shows and coming from right and left different shows where guys will call in, or the advocate for the energy company is saying, well, we don't need all these animals on the planet. And usually that was when a creek was going to be cut off for development, and they were talking about a small salamander that was in danger, and that person saying, well, man's the primary creature, we're here to subdue the earth. And for a long time I questioned was that really the plan for the earth, and then I went to school and found out that actually just a bad translation.
But you'll also find that biologists won't agree.
They won't agree.
The example that I was so fascinated by was Paul Ehrlich. Mm-hmm. That you have an airplane wing, and it's got rivets. He said there are a lot of redundant rivets. There are a lot of extra rivets. They mm-hmm. hold the wing on. Then you can pop a few, you can pop a few more. But there's a certain point at which you pop that critical rivet, your wing falls off.
Yeah.
And that's basically, we don't understand the web of life. We don't understand what those rivets are. We aren't the designers. We aren't the architects. We don't know what we're fiddling with. The other one is, imagine being on an airplane that's on autopilot, right? Nature's on autopilot. It's going where nature's going. And some human gets up in the back of the airplane, walks to the front and says, I can do this, snaps off the autopilot, takes a hold of the controls. That's basically what we think we're doing. And anybody who says, oh gee, those are extra species we don't need, is no biologist, number one,
yeah.
and has no perspective whatsoever on creation, and that things are here for a reason. Or because we don't understand the reason doesn't mean there isn't a reason.
Right, right. I like the way you put that. And there is a lot of reports where I'm from in North Carolina, in the coastal waters, there was tons of jellyfish in the low-level tides and in the sounds, and they were saying, well, we always used to say, I would talk, I was working as a sailing counselor, and the kids were always complaining about those darn jellyfish, but the biologists were telling us it's because loggerhead turtles, which feed on jellyfish, yep. were in sharp decline, and so an animal that you rarely see, a loggerhead turtle, because we fail to protect the habitat, it's kind of a neat lesson. Because of that, you can't go swimming because jellyfish are in huge quantities.
And they'll eat plastic bags thinking that they're jellyfish, and they'll choke and die.
Yeah, so it's really, that's one of the small ways where I say, well, if we had just protected more loggerheads, we'd have more places to swim. And it was a real
balance.
Real way to teach those kids that lesson.
It's like taking coyotes or wolves out of the ecosystem. What happens then? The prairie dogs and everybody else build up. You throw your ecosystem out of balance, and there are ramifications that we look back and say, ooh, gee, look what happened.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, in every equation,
situation with the rabbits,
kangaroos, but in every equation that humans try to develop, when you take algebra, you've got a variable, an unknown.
Right.
We have to make decisions, and we have to, in every equation that we make that's scientific, since we don't know everything. We have to put a variable into each equation for the part we don't know. And we have to make our decision, not based on the algebraic solution to that equation, but for our best guess based on what we know. And we have to use common sense for what we don't know. And so many times, decisions are sacrificed on the altar of science. right? You can't prove something or other scientifically. Well, we shouldn't have to, because there's a certain common sense element. Certain things exist the way they do because nature is running on autopilot. And we go in and tinker with it, and we don't know what we're doing, we're going to bear the consequences, and the consequences are mounting big time, and they're amplified by vastly, I'm afraid to say, overpopulated planet. We've exceeded the carrying capacity, but we have to think long term what that means. You know, people think replacement rate is two children. Well, actually, if you do it mathematically, that means that when your 2 children come in, your parents have to leave.
Yeah.
Because people build up, and when those 2 children have 2 children, so two is not replacement rate. It's more than replacement rate, but it's thinking long term. What are the consequences of these actions?
Now, do you guys get grants from larger groups or organizations? Are you the grant giver, or?
No, we are a 501c3 nonprofit seeking funds.
Okay.
Now, we have an earned income source with the Alliance Center. We also
You rent the building.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
with to fellow nonprofits working on issues of sustainability. And we also get grants from foundations, corporate donations. We hold events. It's a pretty typical fundraising stream for a nonprofit. Other than we do have this wonderful asset, this green building.
Would you say that the current administration, the current governorship is more pro your type of thinking than the previous one? Or has it not been long enough?
Governor Ritter is bringing in new, fresh ideas. He's already told people, starting with his inaugural address, straight on through public presentations, he's made himself very accessible, that he wants to focus on a new way of looking at how Colorado operates. Energy, there's a lot of energy sources here, a lot of resources that could be developed, whether it's geothermal or solar or wind.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many opportunities that are more sustainable because they replenish, they renew. They're not like the fossil fuels where there is a finite supply. And yes, it's a very fresh look at what we need to be considering as we go forward. Yes, it's a very hopeful administration. His view on what needs to be done is very, very hopeful.
Well, if you had a crystal ball, and we're not talking about 200 years in the future, we're just talking about, let's say, the next decade, what would you hope would happen in Colorado through your work here?
Through our work?
Yeah.
Okay,
the most, well, let's say the best dream possible.
The Alliance for Sustainable Colorado, the name was chosen because it could be a variable. It could be the Alliance for Sustainable New Jersey or New York or California or Arizona, Mississippi, whatever. It's a state-based sustainability movement. The point is it's inclusive. What is sustainable? To me, it's thinking long-term, and another element that's got to be there is inclusive. We have to have the intelligence, the wisdom, the expertise from the various sectors, as I mentioned. We want to create a state-based sustainability movement and give it a sense of place. There's all kinds of historical origin about what a sense of place means.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a little fish protecting your home or whatever else it is. Very important. We want to make a national center. We have one building here and we own a lot adjacent to this building. We want to build a second building. We want to make a place where people from around the country can come and can consider what they're doing, can share lessons learned, and develop courses of action for policy and implementation of practices of sustainability. And this is a place to do it. In Denver, you've got as good an access, travel-wise, to the main airport in Denver as you do any other state.
Mm-hmm.
You can take more nonstop flights here using less, hopefully, fossil fuels. Ideally, when the new building will set up the televideo capability so people wouldn't even have to, they could telecommute.